Let's
Oh,
record.
thank you. Okay.
We'll see where
Thank you.
it's saved, and if I can share it afterwards.
Actually, yeah, how are you going to share it? I just realized it's going to be very big. Is it?
I'm not sure. I'm recording it into cloud, so probably with a link.
Oh, okay. With
We'll
some connection.
sort it out.
Yeah. So yeah, what you said. Can you just go back then to what you were saying about our state of emotion and the link to our physical health?
Yeah, well, we are, I call it the holy trio, the mind, body, soul. And we keep forgetting about it. So we continuously, when something's happening in the physical body, we tend to seek answers in the physical reality, in the physical world. Like, so we trace it back to our diets, to supplements, etc., etc. But everything in life starts and finishes in our soul, with our soul, which I see as a it's consciousness. I see it as energy, and we are energetic beings, all in this field of energy. We cannot detach from it. We are always it. And in terms of, from my experiences and also others' experiences, and I've been working with people in this area as well, everything starts from the emotional blockages, like everything that happens in our physical bodies. It's from the emotional blockages. And we can literally trace it back to all these emotional blockages, which tend to start accumulating in childhood. This is when we start forming these behavioral thinking and emotional patterns. This is when we are taught normally to suppress or repress emotions or escape them. So we're not taught to express them fully and to feel them fully. And when we don't do it, this energy just accumulates in our body. Like, are you familiar with the Chinese medicine?
With acupuncture, yeah, I've had it. Yeah, I've been through it. The meridians and the energy centers. Yeah.
So what Chinese medicine does, Chinese created this map of the body as like a map of meridians going through, like, these are energy channels going through our bodies. So this energy should be flowing continuously. And when we suppress emotions, they create stagnations in our body, in these energetic channels. So once the stagnation is created, then it's accumulated over time, and we are not even aware of it because it's going on the subconscious level. We're just acting as we always have acted, and we don't see anything wrong about it. But if we continue to suppress and escape all these emotions, they continue to accumulate, and with time they create all sorts of issues, like cancer, like abnormalities. In my case, abnormalities in breast tissues, for instance. Like all sorts of things. I used to suffer from lower back pains, and I have this, kind of misalignment, which has been diagnosed by conventional medicine. But ever since I started working with my emotions and the charges from the past, and I started kind of rewiring my brain, my thinking and emotional patterns, I stopped having any issues, any pains in my back. And same happened with the breast tissues. So it's back to normal. I'm not experiencing anything like I used to have hormonal disbalances, etc. Like, it's all gone, it's all done. So it really I compare this kind of work to Chinese medicine, but without needles. It's like, it's just a matter of tracing back when it started accumulating and what supports this accumulation, and then changing the patterns within you, and you can heal yourself.
No, I agree with you. This is very rare, but kind of spot on what you're saying, because and I think what you said earlier also resonated for me with that people don't pay attention to this, and they get caught up in their own habits and habitual ways of thinking, and so they become blind. And
Yeah.
even if you tell them, they'll hear it. Even if they agree with you, they'll slip back to like a groove, back into how they've been immersed in their past. And so that's the biggest challenge, is becoming I mean, it's a real challenge, to be consciously aware of those patterns and how we're treating and being with ourselves.
Yeah, but consciously aware as well as open to learning newer
Hmm.
pathways, right? Like because we continuously, Joe Dispenza does it, like Joe Dispenza explains it well, that we continuously live in our past. The reality that we live in now is a result of the past. And we continuously build our realities of
Hmm.
the past.
Hmm.
So when we are stuck in certain behavioral patterns and emotional thinking patterns, it's still the past. Like, so that's actually self-development. I find self-development, like this trend of self-development, is actually a trap as well, because we think that we are developing, but unless we look inside, like
Hmm.
in our
Well,
subconscious,
correct. Yeah. There's an illusion that,
we're
hey,
not.
I'm doing
Yeah,
something. Yeah.
it's just an illusion. We're just adding additional masks on top of our old behaviors, but we're
Mhm.
not really healing from the inside. So
Yeah.
so I find it's important to first to heal yourself, to bring back that balance within you, and then you can learn more things, and then you
Mhm.
can expand. But that expansion without healing first can be hurtful.
I think you're right. Absolutely. And I think the problem that I examine is constantly is that we've been taught to err towards comfort. And
Mm,
so sometimes the questions you're raising and the wisdom in what you're offering requires us to step into an area of discomfort, which is unfamiliar, which is unexperienced. And there's the unknown and ambiguity. And when we step into that openly, like, and I love what you said about this, really is about being open to the new experiences and new ways of thinking and new ways of being. But we've been also part of that programming is don't be uncomfortable. Take a pill. Use social media or find some game or
mm,
sport or distraction
yeah.
because you don't want to be uncomfortable. And so we've been,
But
whereas in previous centuries, people didn't have a choice when they're in the farm and they had to get up at 4 a.m. in the bitter cold. They had to get out there and do what they had to do. And um, and actually, there was sitting at a coffee shop the other day, and I was waiting for my sister to cut her hands. So she'd gone in for therapy, so I sat in the coffee shop, and this old man came and sat next to me, and he's waiting for his wife, and we started chatting, and he was 92. And he said how his great grandfather came from Ukraine, had to go by boat for 3 months. And then back then he said you would get 30 acres for free from the government as long as you could plow it and make it farmland. And he said, now you could imagine this man and his family turning up. He's never farmed. He doesn't know what the land in Canada is like. He doesn't have the right tools. He has to get up every morning. And if he doesn't, within 3 years, have the 30 acres farmland, they take it off him. And he said, that's, he had to deal with brutal discomfort every day. And now we wake up in a society where I think we've been kind of spoilt like children, and we don't want discomfort. We want immediately some kind of pill or an injection or some kind of entertainment or distraction, because and what you're raising is the wisdom. What you're offering is has to deal with, actually, it may not be physical. Actually, it may be physical as well, but it's also existential discomfort of being able to step away from the programming and say, okay, so and what do I want? I find even interesting asking that question. what do you want? And it sounds like a simple question, but when you actually ask somebody to pause and say, what do you want? You know, what do you personally, people don't know. And further, there's a discomfort in trying to figure it out, because you have to go through what you've been saying, through all those layers and layers of programming, and to just, you know, to discard what we've essentially has defined, all those masks we've defined as ourselves. And that's very that's disorientating, and it's scary.
It is scary, but you know, I find that the way we are brought up these days in the Western society isn't also helping us to come out of these comfort zones. So we are not encouraged. I think we are brought up completely differently. So there's probably no point in comparison. What I see is that we in the Western society are brought up with plenty of emotional blockages, which are the ones that create the so-called ego. There's so much talk about ego, but ego is just fear and pain. That's it. Like unless, and what I see, the discomfort that everyone should go through is to go through that pain again and see where those programs and how they were created, because they were created based on pain, on emotional pain. So, you know, like kids, small kids, all they need is unconditional love and acceptance. And in this society, we are not getting it. So, and, you know, I think that harsh upbringing is not really actually a good way. Of course, I'm not an expert in parenting, definitely not, but there needs to be some kind of balance, I find. It's like allowing for that emotional comfort, as well as encouraging to go outside of the comfort zone in the external world. And I think this is something that is not even possible in this society.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, because everywhere you look, somebody's looking to find some way of containing your attention and taking it into a different comfort zone. She's typically tied, obviously, to money and to commercialism, something other, selling something.
Yeah, well, there is a lot of stimuli around for sure. And we are getting lost in it.
Sorry?
And we get lost in it. It's very easy to get lost in it.
Very easily. It's designed to catch us back, like you were saying earlier, in terms of habits, because they understand the programming, how to habitualize us. And now with the advent of AI, I mean, it's going to just go into warp speed. It's going to go to another level of distraction and disconnection.
It depends for whom. I think I really see AI as just this collective consciousness, like whatever we put inside, we'll get out of it. So it really depends who and how uses it. Some people will use it and abuse it, and some people will use it to their advantage. It really depends on the individual.
But it does require us to become even more conscious of what is actually going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything in life boils down to accepting full responsibility for oneself.
Really does, yeah. It starts right there, yeah.
Yeah, and all levels, the physical, emotional, and mental, all of them. That's how we become fully empowered, self-empowered when we achieve that. That's called mastery. Many spiritual teachers call it mastery, but I truly think this is the mastery of life, to lead oneself first.
Yeah.
And then
I agree with you 100%. I like you were saying about the meridians and to acupuncture. I discovered I think it must be 15 years ago now, power of the tantric scriptures and tantra, which is again just like it's the same type of, it actually comes from the same roots as the Chinese wisdom, which was that we are energy, period. Like we are, you know, flows of energy, and when those flows of energy get blocked or constrained, there is illness, there is and there's dis-ease. And understanding that was really powerful for me was when I realized, wait a minute, I'm examining people as individualized separate units to be analyzed and understood and defined. But that's a lie. In all of nature is connected through one massive universal energy field. And as we know through nature, and I think there's becoming more and more awareness of this, that everything is interconnected, every tree is interconnected, you know, every element of life is interconnected, and we are as well. And when we have that connection, whether it's in a rock concert or a sports event or some major rally or protest, people feel that connection. You know, they can call it love, they can call it unity, or but there is, but we're returning to our universal connection, and people have found ways of creating those conditions. But the truth is, that is truth. That is, but a lot of the aspects of tantra which talk, it's interesting even in, is because it's been really rejected by Hinduism. Hindus don't like tantra, and I'm surprised. I said, well, I thought it came out of the Hindu tradition. They said, no, it's actually evil. And I said, well, why do you think it's evil? And I realized a lot of the religions, all religions, in fact, really, at some level in terms of as institutions, don't want us to be connected with nature and our energy. They want us to be connected to another narrative that is in their control. And so it comes back to hierarchy, and the hierarchy always happens to be men, be they brown men, black or white or yellow men. It always comes back to, and it just happens to be their own church, and it happens to be them. They're the ones with the authority and the wisdom. And so you're right. So much has been taken away from us, and we don't take responsibility, the ability to respond for ourselves, because we've given it up to religion, and with that religion's commercialism, whether it's business, whether it's entertainment, social media, or in fact, they're all forms of religion in a sense, because we're giving our belief to something outside ourselves, hoping that it's going to fulfill us.
Yeah, and that's the thing, like we are not really encouraged to be empowered, self-empowered, right? And but I find the self-empowerment comes from the energy of emotions. So we can participate in all of it, but the question is, how do we feel when we are doing it? Because we can listen to the media, we can go to the churches of all sorts, we can discuss all sorts of topics with people on a different wavelength, but it all boils down to how we feel within us, and we are not taught to actually notice all these feelings and emotions, all these vibrations within. And once we are aware of them, then we know how to discern what's good for us and what's not. And I, you know, we are in a binary universe, right? There is there's always polarity. And I, for instance, don't believe in some spiritual teachings that convince people to be always positive and to just always follow the light, etc. I used to be caught in it as well. But we are not here to experience light only. We are here to experience both sides and to discern, decide for ourselves what's for us and what's not, and let others be as well. Like, let others do whatever resonates with them as well. So it's, I'm a big believer of self-empowerment and just knowing thyself. like nobody else does.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, it's fascinating. Recently, I think through the pandemic, I was spending a lot of time giving because the business had fallen off. So I thought, let me spend, and I've been traveling a lot for many years all over the world and spent less time local in my own local community. So I thought, well, this is an opportunity for me to spend, since I've got nowhere to go but home. There's no you can't fly, you can't cross the border. Um, Everything is locked down. So I started to help out various charities, um, and I discovered this, all of the people, there's a whole sets of marginalized people, people who've been disabled, people who are ostracized because they're a different color or a different religion or a different gender, or they're just immigrants and they come from a culture that doesn't feel familiar. And there's no support for them. There's financial support that might be available, but nothing beyond. So I started to work with these groups, and eventually they came back to me and said, "Hey, why don't you come work for us or with us, and we'll pay you. You don't have to do this voluntarily." And I said, "No, that's okay." And then they convinced me, said, "We'd like you to come." So I've joined this group called Refiners Hub, and the concept is really simple. It's that it's the notion of we aren't fixing you, and so actually, the other thing I found, by the way, was that they said to me, there's a lot of government money that gets wasted. So they got $3 million from the government and said, well, let's use it wisely to help provide support to these people. And so the support we're providing is to help educate them and help them develop. So first of all, not educate them, but help them to step back and ask themselves, what do I want? Like, rather than just get stuck in a job, come into country, was an immigrant, or maybe they've been raised in a family where they weren't given any direction. And so it was quite interesting that nearly half of the people that we're dealing with are white. They're marginalized because they grew up in either houses or households where they got no encouragement or direction. Um, and so they just don't know how to deal with um, finding not just a job, but a career. And in particular, a career in a digital economy. So we've set up this organization to provide upskilling for people who've been marginalized, to help them develop their careers, to help, and it's help them find their way through the digital economy, provide them for free up training and upskilling in programs so they can get certified and they can enter careers, which is only really the rich or the privileged or people could do before. And anyway, so in doing that work, it's been fascinating because the reaction I get from a 22 or 25-year-old immigrant who's just come from Ghana or South Africa or wherever is no different than a 65 or 55-year-old executive. When I've sat down in the room and coached them, it's the same human experience. And so that's what I've been kind of more involved with recently, just applying my coaching and developing skills. I just didn't know that there was government funding to help me do that for people who are underprivileged and poor. And so that's been, and it's been very gratifying too, because it's really brought me into, having traveled all over the world. It's kind of took me deep into the local community to visit different areas and especially Canada, where we live in Toronto. It's very, very cosmopolitan. So one day I'm with Ukrainians, the next day I'm with people from Uganda, and the next day I'm with people who come from Brazil, and and they all come from different countries and different cultures. But what's interesting, I find, is there's this, in that beautiful uniqueness, there is this vein or this humanity that connects us all. And that's been some of the most fulfilling experience of my life, is like, and actually, and for a lot of these people, because they're so scared, because they're immigrants or because they're underprivileged, they're disabled, or they've been discarded by society, they're open to this work much more than privileged people that I've been working with my whole life, who've had comfort, who have money, who have education, and therefore have a greater fear of really examining who they are.
Mm. It's interesting, right? Like once we reach that comfort zone, it's we are kind of stopping to grow, to expand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The comfort zone of the modern world, when we can afford everything that we wish to afford, and we have more or less happy lifestyle. And that's the point when most people stop expanding, really.
It's true. It's interesting. I used to use this thing for many years called the circle of influence and the circle of concern.
Mm.
And so it was all about, in the middle, you've got control and influence, and the outside, you've got no control. And what I used to be teaching people was, focus on what you can control, and then you can grow and deal with what you can't control. And what's out of your control is the economy and ecosystems and global warming and violence and all of these things that are out of your control. So don't worry about those. Focus on what you can control. And as I'm working with these communities and these particularly people of different, excuse me, across different cultures, they're all the same when you ask them, okay, step back from your immediate need. Tell me what your dream is. What
Mm.
is your dream for your life? And there is no limit. And they all kind of move towards that natural sense of wanting to be connected to the universe, to the environment, to their community, to be of service. And so it was kind of interesting. It's like, wow, it's the things that they can't control are the things that they should be open to. And so why should, we've got these raging fires in Canada right now and in North America. Last week we had our first lockdown in 2 years. But this time the lockdown was because all of Canada's massive forests, millions of acres are on fire. And we literally, you couldn't walk outside because you would just choke. The smoke was so strong. And so we were told stay inside, because if you stay 20 minutes outside, you're going to end up, it's like smoking a pack of cigarettes, because the smoke's invisible, but it's very toxic. And I was thinking, wow, and yet those fires have been allowed to occur because of things that we haven't dealt with. And so both internally within ourselves, but also as a society, we haven't paid attention to the consequences of what we're doing collectively. And so what I'm finding is really fascinating is that these people who are underprivileged and have the least amount of economic resources bring with them also an openness. Because there's a certain desperation in the underprivileged, because they've seen what it's like to be without anything. So they have the most openness. And I'm like, wow, these people are really interesting and easier to work with than those people that I've been working with my whole life, who are very book knowledged and well read, and they've been through all the TED Talks, and they've been through all of the conferences, and they've been through all the schooling. They're actually more harder to stop and ask, what is your dream? Like, what is it that you want? So it's kind of an interesting paradox.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Tell me about yourself. What's your next phase? Like, what do you see as your dream? Like, what do you want to be doing the next 10 years?
I want to be spreading this know-how, this wisdom. So empowering people, so helping people heal. We'll see at what extent. I have a feeling I will be running bigger programs for groups and helping people understand themselves at a deeper level. But for now, I'm focused on individual work. Yeah.
Have you published anything? Have you thought about publishing a book?
I have, but I feel I need more experience for that. I don't know. I think I'm still struggling with that imposter syndrome. I know it's still there, like it kicks in quite regularly. At least I can notice
Right.
it these days.
I mean, that's the script of, I'm not ready yet is exactly imposter syndrome, right? I am not worthy, or I'm not prepared. And yeah, I
Yeah.
think you are. I think the wisdom you bring already, and of course you will become wiser and deeper as like years go by. But I think you've got more now than most people have ever. There's a
Mm.
lot that you're offering there right now.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm thinking of recording some videos about it, and yeah, we'll see. We'll see where it takes me. I'm actually learning to live in flow as opposed
Mhm,
to
mhm.
strategizing, because I now believe that we are guided. We are guided by our higher selves. Nobody like, well, I won't go into details, but I feel that intuitively we know what to do and when to
Mhm,
do it, for as long
mhm.
as we tune into it, into that wisdom. So for now, I'm actually exercising it and seeing how it unfolds for me. And so far, it's quite cool, quite
It
amazing.
is actually. I really enjoy your videos when you make them. They're very like refreshing and present, and actually, come to think of it, what you could do is just continue doing those videos because you enjoy doing them. And these days, with optical, you can extract the sound into words, and you've actually got the text from your videos that provides you raw material that you can edit into a book.
Hmm. But I actually prefer to write. Well, I don't. Yeah, I feel like I prefer to write down my thoughts, and that
Mm.
helps to structure them as well, and to so.
Yeah, writing is very therapeutic. Yeah, I find the same thing.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. But yeah, I just haven't started properly. So I've been writing in my posts, and I know they tend to be long, not for everyone. Um, but yeah, let's see. I think a book will come at some point as well.
I think there's actually several books inside of you. To be honest, there's just no. You know, it's just a question of once the first one is out the way, then there's going to be a flow. I can see it of each one will then build on the next and create more and more waves because there's, I mean, you're right. I mean, I find the same thing with writing. Journaling, and whether it's writing posts or journaling, it's very therapeutic.
Mm.
It's one of the great joys. It's very meditative to be writing. I mean, some people find everybody's different. Some people find it very painful to write. It's almost like a chore. But for me, like you, I find writing is a great way of just allowing thoughts to emerge and being able to see what's come out and reflect and then build. And says there's a great emergent process.
It's actually something that I recommend to my clients, because why can it be so painful for some? Because they're not even familiar with their own thoughts.
Exactly.
So, so it,
Exactly. It's painful. Yeah.
it,
Mhm.
it takes some practice, but once you start, it's really it creates so much space within our heads, so much space. And
Mhm.
another thing is, like, we are finally seeing what we are thinking, and I truly believe that what we have in that inner chatter creates our reality, our life, and our health, like everything in our lives. So all life experiences. So it's quite important to kind of track down that inner chatter,
Right.
and writing is a great tool for that.
Oh, it's superb, and I agree with that's a great way of saying it. Actually, is people who've never written, it is actually this kind of step of being able to see your own thinking.
Mm.
And that can be frightening. It can be scary when you've not been used to doing that, or kind of used to being in that field. It's kind of unfamiliar. So let me ask you this question then. So if you're saying you're not ready yet, do you know when you might be?
For writing a book?
Yeah, because I think you're depriving the world of something really important that it needs right now. So I'm wondering how long you're going to continue to be selfish and keeping yourself. I've been provocative, on purpose, right? You know that.
Thank you, Kashmir. You are definitely pushing a button here. Like,
Because I never thought of you as selfish. I always think of you the complete opposite of a very giving, forgiving person. But in this one aspect, you are holding back.
thank you for this motivation. I will reconsider.
I wish you would. And I'm being sincere. I really do think you are refreshing and open and clarifying something that is rare. There's so many things that, I go through, especially in these days on LinkedIn and YouTube and Instagram, and you get all these reels and Facebook. It's just, it's the same stuff over and over again. Or somebody trying to motivate you, do these 3 things and you'll change your life. Do these 2 things and everything will change. Whereas you're coming back to what I find is different is you're saying you're bringing us back to almost like a discipline or the ability to be at one with yourself. And that's a skill. And there isn't like here's the 2 things if you do today. You do. And I find that those type of videos and reels and posts that keep telling you there's 2 things you have to do or 4 things. And if you keep doing those 4 things, everything will be fine. Are adding to the illusion, because most people are now going through every day. One of my clients, in fact, she said she loved all these reels she watches every single day. And I said, so tell me, what did you learn? She said, I learned so much. I said, well, just tell me, like articulate for me. And she couldn't, because she's been clogged with so much stuff that it's become another comfort food. It's become, and then she realized, oh, I'm using this to avoid the real work because it's giving me enough comfort to say, oh, I've got something to think about, but she's not doing anything about it. She's not created anything out of it. And that's what you said earlier, which is it's more than just conscious awareness. It's then saying, okay, so what am I going to do about this? What action am I going to take? What change am I going to create? And so I think what you bring is something that's different, I feel, from the conventional, I call it sweet shop, confectionery store, where everybody's stuffing themselves with the same self-help solutions. You're very different. You're saying, hey, no, there's darkness and light, and let's go explore what that is and see what you want to do about it.
Thank you, Kashmir.
I'm serious. It's like, so.
And I appreciate your appreciation as well. Because I do realize it's not conventional, and it's not as eye-catching as other things out there. So I appreciate you watching my videos and reading my posts.
No, I love it. I love it. I think it's refreshing. I so many times sometimes I get, when I see some post, I go, oh, it actually makes me like in pain, because I just want to scream, like, and then I just switch to the next one and get to the next one and say, okay, because they're just so it's like having too much sugar. It's just everything is sugar coated, and here's the solution and here's the answer. And what you're saying, no, here's the questions. Here's what here's the exploration. Here's the unknown, which is, I find, very different.
From my own experience, at some point we just have to stop reading and watching and listening to other sources, and we just need to go deep inside ourselves and tap into that.
And that's beautiful. That's what I mean. See, that's to me rings so beautiful. That's just that is, I agree with you. That's what needs to happen, and it's the complete opposite of this programming that we're surrounded by, which is just another distraction.
maybe I'll create more distraction about not not being in distraction.
Well, no, maybe it is actually blowing the whistle on all of this stuff that seems to be created to help us, but actually, in a way, actually weakens us because it's like the story of the child with the lamb who wouldn't put the lamb down, and the father said, "You have to put the lamb down," and she goes, "Why?" But it's so weak, and he said, "Well, it will never be able to walk if you carry it everywhere." And so we've become that society now where we're being carried around by these experts and these so-called successful people and people who are writing the books. and they write them every year. Like some of them got 7, 8, 10 books, and they have no quandary. Oh, well, yes, another book, another year. And there's so much of that that's weakening us because we're not standing on our own 2 feet. We're not learning to step through the process ourselves, experience ourselves, that we're experiencing other people's version of what we should be.
Yeah, all these masks.
It is, really, it is. And they're very deceptive because they don't turn up as evil, nasty, violent. They come across as people who are genuinely helping us. They're helping us find the truth. And all we have to do is follow their formula and make them rich.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Like all these formulas are just personal, unique interpretations that worked for them most likely, but probably won't work for others.
Actually, I when you said most likely, that was interesting. You said that because I think you're right. We don't even know if it worked for them. Perhaps the only thing that's working for them is helping them sell books and make more money. That's what. There was a colleague of mine who said to me when I got my coaching certification, and he said, "You're doing the wrong thing. You can't make money from coaching." And I said, "Why not?" And he said, "Because the real money is certifying coaches."
Ah,
And this, he goes, "It's easier too, and you don't have any responsibility. You just give them these skills, they parrot them back, they repeat them, and you give them a certificate." And he goes, "That's what you should do." And I said, "No, I find no satisfaction in that whatsoever. I don't want to do that." But then I stepped back and realized, yeah, the big industry is people selling books and programs about how, but there's not real. It's not real. It's just another form of confectionery. It's another form of distraction and entertainment. It's a form of control, but it comes over as benevolent. It's a benevolent form of entrapping people and not and actually taking away their own empowerment, taking away their power. Because essentially, if I'm telling you these are the things you must do, and I don't even know you, and you're not, and I'm stopping you from exploring yourself, that's the opposite of empowerment. That's me taking power,
yeah.
and that's where and that's become for me like another church. And when you see this on Sundays or weekends, when you see these on TV, these big congregations, and obviously, I'm not judging, but they seem to have given up their power. But now in society now, particularly on socials and the internet, I see the same thing. We see millions of people just surrendering their power and to somebody else and saying, "Oh, so
It,
these are just new forms of churches." That's all, with new
it's an
preachers.
easier way. It really is an easier way.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because we are taught from like early days of our lives that others tell us what we should do, who we are,
Mhm.
etc. We get attached to our names, we get attached to other identities, and then we walk through life and expect others to tell us what we should do. It's how this society works. It's like the basis of it. But yeah, I think it's time to embrace it, to embrace the inner power, and that's really my mission. I think this is my gift, to empower people and to show them where their power is, to tap into it.
Mhm.
We continuously outsource it. continuously.
True. It is, and it's interesting because it's the exact opposite of what's being put out there, which is you don't know what you're doing. I'll tell you, I'll give you your programming, and and it's a comfort food. But actually, it's not even a comfort food. It's actually a distraction. It's taking people away from doing the work that they need to do for themselves. So my hat's off to you. Thank you for taking the time today and reconnecting, because it's been it's difficult, with because people are wanting to get instant solutions, they're looking for instant gratification. They're looking for they want something but when they start accumulating all those instant solutions, they're like that client of mine who's just suddenly realized she'd been watching and reading, consuming this stuff every day for hours and hours. And there's so many 2, 3, and 5 and 7-step programs in her head that she has no time to think for herself.
Yeah, and it wears us down. It's this pressure, internal pressure, that we're not there yet, that we're not enough yet, that we we are lacking. We are continuously lacking. We are in this lack. It's the state of mind which is lack.
It is. This is the economy of lack.
Yeah.
And we're somehow broken, and that's why with the Refiners Hub, the one thing I influence the group to say is, okay, if we're helping somebody for free, and we're saying to them, you're not broken. What a refiner does is takes gold or silver and heats up and removes the distractions, impurities. But you are gold. You are precious. And what you got to do is remove those things that have got in the way of yourself. And as we put people through that process, we say to them, the most important part is for them, if they're going to join and we're going to give them this for free, and they're going to be part of this community, the most important part is they have to become a refiner for others. And so we certify them through, okay, help them to go help others, because if you're not helping others, you're not really helping yourself. And that's the best way of helping yourself. And when they discover, it really is powerful, because now we're performing this community. We're up to 250 people right now. We've only been going for a year, but we're looking to, and a lot of people are actually asking in other cities, in Chicago, in Denver, can we create a hub in our local community? And actually, a couple of students have said they want to create a hub in their campus where they can bring students together. And we said, well, we're not ready yet. So just did what you did. We're not quite ready yet.
Oh, Kashmir, don't be selfish.
I had that coming. Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
But no, but I think what you touched on something that's I still haven't embraced fully. Well, helping others really empowers me, and I love doing it. I see, like, looking at my past, that I was sacrificing myself for others so many times, which was also disempowering me,
right,
in the end. So nobody won really in this case. I really think that we should be, like, firstly looking after ourselves, and then out of this full cup of energy, sharing that energy with others, because otherwise it's just not.
You're right.
It's difficult to maintain this flow. So I find that loving others should start from self-love, but compassionate self-love, like looking after oneself first, like coming back to that inner peace.
That hits home for me so much. So, I mean, in fact, what happened to once I used to write every day a journal, and often there would be in form of poetry. And when I was writing one day, a friend of mine said, "What is this?" It was my journal. I said, "I do this every day." And she goes, "It's beautiful." She goes, "You should share this with the world. Why are you keeping this to yourself?" I said, "Okay." So I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Go on Facebook, start a group, and just start sharing your poetry." So I started doing this, and you can't, well, you'll believe this. So I thought, hey, this is something I'm going to use to help me. Within 3 months, I was getting hundreds of followers. Within 6 months, there were thousands of followers. And the next thing I
Wow.
know, I'm spending all my time helping other people. And I went, wait a minute. And I realized I started to do this to create space and time for myself, and I've slipped into helping others again. And so I
Yeah.
had to shut it down. And people said, why are you shutting it down? I said, I have to shut it down because it was a great moment of realization. I keep doing exactly what you said.
And
And
it's
you
one
do
of
is
the
you
programs, and
keep helping, and then you end up being at the end of the queue. And you never have time to deal with
this
the
is
source.
how
The source,
your health
right.
deteriorates as well. So really, like, without
Yeah.
that self-care, but I think that self-care or self-love is also labeled, this label is also, there are many interpretations of it. For me,
Mhm.
it's learning what you need, what you truly want, like what your needs are, and ensuring that you are full, like your cup is full.
It's
And
true.
that also
I can,
requires setting
yeah,
healthy boundaries out of self-love, right?
it is
So
true.
without,
So true.
not with anger like many people do. And I used to as well when I was like burning out. I would just, shout, like eventually I would just explode. But it's just setting boundaries on the way, and, like doing it all with grace and with peace, like just out of
Mhm.
self-love. Because when you're loving yourself, you love others as well. Like it's a natural way of evolution for a human being, I
True.
believe.
Exactly. And that's what I've come back to. It took me a long, long time to figure this out, but to go back to realize that I've got to return to the source,
Yeah.
and then be grateful for the source, for that gift. And you're right, if unless you're in tune with that source and grateful for it and appreciate it, then you are really not in a present pro. That's the place where you can help others the most, is by that, like you said, the light and the energy comes from that.
Yeah, and it
So,
flows out of you, like uh you don't even need to do much, and people already benefit from your presence. This is how it
mhm.
works.
So we're two very selfish gits.
I like, like I often talk about it with my clients and friends, that I believe the world would be a better place if everyone was selfish, but a healthy self, a balanced
Healthy selfishness.
healthy selfishness. Because this way everyone would know how to communicate their boundaries,
Yeah,
how to
exactly.
respect others' boundaries. And
Yeah.
but it would be probably boring as well.
No, actually, I think it would be, and it would be a dangerous place too, because people would be having some very different conversations. That would change the conversation completely
Honest,
from, yeah,
open conversation.
honest and open, as opposed to some politician or some superstar celebrity, or some religious person telling people what to think and how to think. It's like these reality shows, these celebrity culture, where everybody, it's another area of, like what you're saying about lack, is they're watching, and they even know these shows are scripted. The thing is, the whole thing is fake. It's not reality show. It's actually the complete opposite. Still, people are addicted to it because
Yeah.
it gives them comfort food. And it deals with that, like you called it. I love that point about the lack, that sense of lack. It feeds that lack, and it actually makes it worse, because now you become addicted to sitting and watching other people's so-called successful lives when they're actually that's not even real. So
Yeah.
that's the world. So yeah, having a world where people stop, pause, sit through the silence, and return to source. Um, that would be such an interesting universe.
Such a different world, huh?
Yeah.
I think this is the future of this world, by the way, but it's still quite
I know. I
quite
think maybe
ahead of us.
I don't know. Maybe the new generations. I don't know. They're starting to see the selfishness, the greed, the whole. I've been looking at our kids and their peers and how they're facing the world. And there's been my peers, like at my age, old people like me, they are very critical of the youngsters, saying, oh, they're Generation X and they are lazy and they're not loyal and they are and I'm reading all these books written mostly by my generation, and people with great authors and conferences, and I'm listening to them, but then I'm looking at these kids and going, no, these kids are not disloyal. They're just not. They're refusing to be slaves to the institutions that we were, and they're refusing to, and they're creating their own economy, and they're creating their own hustles, and they're working hard, but they're not. They're refusing to become part of the system that we've got used to. And then when I look at those books, you know, these like Simon Sinek has made millions of dollars telling even young people, oh, your Generation X is lazy and self-involved and doesn't care. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, you don't get where they're coming from.
Yeah.
They are very connected to society. They're just not connected to the institutions and employment and the traditional contract of I will give you myself, as a slave, and then you can own me for 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
And I can't only do what you tell me to do. They refuse, they say no to that. And they say no to that because they've seen what it's done to us. So I think maybe there is a generational shift. I think really there is occurring, where this new generation is saying no. They've grown up through in their teens through Me Too. They've seen what powerful, controlling men can do to innocence. They've grown up through seeing what's with the pandemic, and they've seen what happens when people don't take care of looking out for themselves and their relationship to others.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a very wise generation waking up to a very different view of the world. And I think so. I'm very hopeful for that.
Yeah. There's different perspectives, and look how interesting it is that the older generations think that their perspective is the right one. And everyone does. That's the thing. Like, and the question is like, how do you know? Like, you've got to you won't be able to understand others' perspective unless you live through all their life experiences and experience all their emotions and thoughts, etc.
Exactly. Yeah.
So everyone
And
has their perspective, their matrix. I see them as matrices, like unique individual matrices, walking around us. And I have my own, you have your own, and we continuously project through it as well on others. So it's quite an interesting time, I think. I think the world is changing. I see it as as a positive change, a positive shift is coming, but it will take some time.
No, I will do. Well, thank you for taking the time. It's always energizing to reconnect with you, and so thank you for your patience. And
Thank you.
I think we will continue along this path.
Yeah. I'll share the recording with you.
Yes, please. Yeah, I don't know how you share it, but yeah, thank you. If you can, thank you for
me
recording.
neither.
Yeah.
Best of luck. So good luck with your work expansion.
No, thank you, and we'll stay in touch through the glorious videos and the posts that you put up. So I'll be.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All the best. Take care.
Okay, all the things. Thank you again. Okay, take care. Ciao. Bye for now.